Wow, that's depressing. This is just a sad fact of life we have to get used to. It seems like a couple times a year word will spread of a movie you didn't know you needed, then for whatever reason, usually the dumbest reason, it gets shelved forever, thus proving that we truly live in the worst timeline. With the recent murder of the fully finished Wile E. Coyote movie and before that, the Batgirl movie, it feels like Warner Bros. Are trying their absolute hardest to make everybody hate them. It's like watching somebody drown in 6 inches of water. Like, buddy, all you gotta do is anything else. Literally any action is better than what you are currently doing to yourself. It always feels like comic movies are on a studio's chopping block and the WB are currently trying to reorganize everything by setting their studio on fire. So today I'm going to talk about abandoned, hypothetical, and cancelled pieces of DC Comics media. 5 months ago, Patrick Harpin walked into @WB Pictures @DC Official and pitched a Batman Beyond animated feature. Before we pitched, they warned us, there is absolutely no way we can do a Beyond movie. But they loved our enthusiasm. We pitched the outline for the entire film, and what started as a never turned into a maybe. In the time since, we've been pitching our way up the company, hoping to get to @James Gunn. Pitched to Warner Bros. By Yuki Demers and Patrick Harpin is a 3D animated Batman Beyond movie. Yuki is an artist who worked on the 2 Spider-Verse movies and the Emoji Movie. Patrick created the Netflix series My Dad the Bounty Hunter and also worked on the Emoji Movie. Just looking through Yuki Demers' website, his illustrations are excellent. Go check this guy out. He's cool. It's hard to speculate what the plot could be from the 3 illustrations that have been released. In the series, Bruce Wayne forced himself to retire after having a heart attack and nearly shooting some dude. 20 years later, a punk kid named Terry McGinnis accidentally finds out that Bruce used to be Batman. Terry's father is murdered, and Bruce reluctantly lets Terry become the new Dark Knight. Someday I'll have to do a review of the entire series. I'm not sure how closely the movie would have followed that. Only one villain, Ink, is featured in any of the illustrations. My guess is that it will combine episodes Rebirth 1 and 2, Blackout, Meltdown, and Ascension, following Terry's origin as Batman and his rivalry with Blight, a billionaire that took over Bruce Wayne's company and got mutated into a nuclear skeleton. It's a shame this fell through. Batman Beyond was already a super stylized series and was practically begging to be in 3D. The 3D animation of Old Man Bruce in the intro is actually a Clay Maquette being spun around on a kitchen Lazy Susan. The producers of the show mentioned how they tried to replicate computer animation with cell animation for some scenes. With the angular drawings, the colors, and the Blade Runner-inspired city, this whole thing still feels contemporary despite the first season and a half not being animated digitally. The released concept art for this movie captures this perfectly, and it's an absolute crime this was just immediately rejected. There's some hope, though. James Gunn is rumored to have taken a notice to the project. I guess the only good decision Warner Bros. Has made recently was putting him in charge of their future DC movies. I just find this all to be very ironic. On the DVD commentary, Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett talked about how Warner Bros. Basically forced them to make the show. They wanted them to make a series that was just going to pander to young kids. Terry was going to be a lot younger, his little brother was going to be Robin, and the Batcave was going to be hidden in a dumpster. Somehow they didn't just make something that was watchable, but a worthy sequel to Batman the Animated Series. With the recent public outcry and James Gunn's possible interest, maybe we will get to see this or something like it someday. Sometimes, sacrifices must be made. Moving on from a canned Batman Beyond movie to the movie canned for Batman Beyond. By 1998, there had been 2 films tying into Batman the Animated Series, Mask of the Phantasm and Batman Sub-Zero. There was a good possibility of making that into a trilogy. During the 4th season, a new direct-to-video movie started production. It was going to be called Batman Arkham. It actually made it pretty far into production before the plug was pulled, and there's a decent amount of concept art. As you can see, some of these designs are very different from BTAS, even the later redesigns from the new Batman adventures. They sort of remind me of the later DC animated movies like Justice League Doom. It was going to have the cast of the show returning, but maybe it wouldn't have been as connected to it story-wise. That, or they just wanted more detailed models for the movie, since the ones used for the new Batman adventures were infamously simplistic. Also, is it just me, or does this Joker give off Disney villain vibes? The bits of the plot that have been released seem to be pretty straightforward. All the bad guys break out of Arkham. We got the Joker, Poison Ivy, and Bane. I'd like to take a moment to point out the fact that Bane only appears in 1 episode of the animated series. Over the Edge was a hallucination, and Nighttime was a Superman episode. Anyway, Bruce has a new love interest, and Batman almost has to kidnap a new human shield. I mean, yeah, I would have loved another BTAS movie, but like I said, we got Batman Beyond instead of this. I don't want to live in a world without that cartoon, and we eventually did get Mystery of the Batwoman, so it kind of balances out. No Man's Land is one of those iconic Batman stories like Nightfall or Hush. Gotham City is devastated by an earthquake. Instead of rebuilding, the government orders remaining citizens to leave, and all bridges to the island are destroyed to prevent anyone from returning. Gotham is now left to the gangs and the police fighting for control. Alliances between heroes and villains are made, everyone is pushed to their limits, and we got the best Batgirl. It's a story arc that's primed for an adaptation. We almost got one in the 2000s. The timeline is unclear, but Karan Kaiser Stone and James Tucker pitched an animated series based on the comic to the WB, twice. Karan is an artist who drew all the concept art shown, and James has worked as a designer on a lot of cartoons, notably on Batman the Brave and the Bold and Justice League Animated. Both times it was shot down for being too dark, and yeah, if they were going to go for comic accuracy, a lot of this plot wouldn't fly as a kid's show. From what I can gather, the first pitch was going to be animated in 2D, and the second was going to be in 3D. I'm not sure if the 3D would have worked with the constraints of a TV budget and the technology at the time. 3D stuff was hit or miss then. Beware the Batman made it work a couple years later, though. This is one of the few major Batman comics DC hasn't turned into a direct-to-video movie, likely because it would be impossible to fit the whole thing in one film. A TV show running for, like, 2 seasons would be a good format for it. No Man's Land was eventually adapted in The Dark Knight Rises, at least partially. Despite being the most iconic comic book character ever, Superman has kinda gotten the shit end of the stick with video games. Batman has Arkham, and Spider-Man has probably more good games than any other superhero. Superman has that weird fucking one on the NES where he hallucinates the Statue of Liberty is talking to him because he snorted rainbow kryptonite. Maybe studios think you can't make a good balanced game with an invulnerable character, but we all know that's bullshit though. If they can make Omni-Man work in Mortal Kombat, then they could absolutely make Nightwing Ass Grab Simulator. What was I talking about? And of everything we've looked at so far, this might be the most complete. Superman Blue Steel was a planned video game by the studio Factor 5. Most of the information we have comes from Twitter user Salvatrix, who is the lead designer. This includes concept art and actual footage of early builds of the game, which is the video you are currently watching. It shows off the potential of what could have been an excellent game with the high speeds and destructive forces you'd want from a game like this. The part where you would have been able to ram enemies through buildings just looks so sick. The devs used the fight scenes in Superman the Animated Series and Justice League Animated as the foundation for these sequences. The game wasn't going to be open world, but each chapter of the story was going to have its own section that you could explore. Obviously, it's hard to review a product that doesn't exist, but I would have preferred open world for a Superman game. It would have had iconic villains like Lex Luthor, Doomsday, General Zod, Darkseid, and Jack Kirby's greatest creation, Calabac. Now, what could have possibly killed this? The early build of the game looks damn good, and Factor 5 had a lot of solid licensed games under their belt. Look out, Superman! It's the 2008 financial crisis! That didn't just kill the game either, but the entire studio. In 2007-2008, I was lead designer on a Superman game that was never released, because the economy crashed hard. It killed our publisher, our studio Factor 5, and the game. I have multiple unreleased games through my career, but this is the only one I mourn to this day. Yeah, that's just... Since this was all, very sad to read, let's talk about one of these actually getting made. Justice League Crisis on 2 Earths started its life as a plot for Justice League Unlimited, written by the legend Dwayne McDuffie. That series got cancelled and Worlds Collide just sat in limbo until it was resurrected as a direct-to-DVD movie. Sure, it doesn't have the voice cast or the designs from JLU, but a lot of the major elements are still there, specifically the focus on Martian Manhunter's arc. This is a movie I couldn't imagine not having. It's fitting that it's about parallel universes. It died with a TV show, but then got revived years later. It kinda got to be both sides of a what-if. I know this list came out a little Batman-heavy, but that's pretty much just because there's a lot of canned Batman stuff. There's still a lot I haven't covered though, and maybe I'll do a part 2. Let me know in the comments if I should make another one, and if you have any suggestions. Sources are in the description, and do me a solid and subscribe so you can come back to my cardboard box and see me talk about more shit.